Hello, viewers, listeners, and followers, and friends as well. Welcome back to this podcast. Okay, idioms. What is an idiom? An idiom is a phrase that, when taken as a whole, has a meaning you wouldn't be able to deduce from the meanings of the individual words. It's essentially the verbal equivalent of using the wrong math formula but still getting the correct answer. The phrase "kill two birds with one stone" is an example of an idiom. Fluent and native English speakers understand that this doesn't refer to harming birds or using stones, but that someone is completing two tasks at once. Our deep dive into this topic will define what an idiom is, go over the different types, help you understand how to use them in writing, and give you some examples. Okay, going further, what is an idiom? An idiom is a type of phrase or expression that has a meaning that can't be deciphered by defining the individual words. Appropriately, the word idiom is derived from the ancient Greek word idioma, which means peculiar, phraseology. And that's exactly what it is, a phrase that's normal to fluent speakers. Every language has its idioms, but strange to others. People who struggle with idioms often can't see the forests for the trees, which is itself an idiom used to describe someone who's too involved with the details of a situation and can't see the bigger picture at hand. It doesn't involve any forests or trees. To understand idioms is to see the forest for the trees, or to look at the phrase as a whole rather than focusing on the individual words. 4 types of idioms. Generally speaking, there are 4 types of idioms: pure idioms, binomial idioms, partial idioms, and prepositional idioms. Some people may consider clichés, proverbs, and euphemisms to be types of idioms as well, but we'll explain why they are different from idioms. Pure idiom. This is your typical idiom, the meaning of which can be deduced by its individual components. When someone says "spill the beans," they are asking someone to reveal a secret, not to pour out a can of beans. But you wouldn't know that by looking at each word of that phrase. 2. Binomial idiom. This idiom is a phrase that contains 2 words joined by a conjunction or a preposition. Some examples include by and large, everything considered, does and don'ts, guidelines on what to do and or avoid in a certain situation, and heart to heart, a candid conversation between 2 people. 3. Partial idiom. This idiom is one that's been shortened into one part, with the second part generally being understood by fluent speakers. People often use the partial idiom when in Rome, with the understanding that the other person knows the second part. Do as the Romans do. 4. Prepositional idiom. This idiom is a phrase that combines a verb and a preposition to create a verb with a distinct meaning. The phrase "agree on" is a prepositional idiom that combines the verb agree with the preposition on and is used to express that you share an opinion with someone. Idiom versus cliché. A cliché can be an idiom, but an idiom is not always a cliché. Clichés are expressions or phrases that are overused to the point where they lose their meaning and indicate a lack of original thought. For example, there are few people who feel better when they hear this after a breakup. Don't worry, there are plenty of fish in the sea. that phrase has been used so often that it fails to have any impact. Idiom versus proverb. A proverb is similar to an idiom in that its meaning can't be deciphered by looking at the individual words, but it's different because it's used to give advice to someone else. If someone says, "Don't cry over spilled milk," they are telling the other person not to worry about something that has already happened. The phrase doesn't mean someone is crying and has nothing to do with dairy. So, once again, a proverb can be an idiom, but an idiom is not always a proverb. Idiom versus euphemism. A euphemism is a type of idiom that's used to discuss a sensitive or taboo topic in a polite or understated way. Even if you're not personally made uncomfortable by a subject, there is still a chance you are using euphemisms around it, simply because they are common to the point of cliché. Topics like death, sex, and money have an abundance of euphemisms. For example, "he kicked the bucket" is a euphemism for "he died," as well as an idiom. How are idioms structured? It's difficult to define an idiom's structure because it changes from language to language and even varies in different regions that speak the same language. Idioms have more to do with syntax, the specific order of words or phrases, than grammar. Remember that the ancient Greek word idioma means peculiar phraseology. So the rules for how to properly structure an idiom are unique to a specific region. Most New Yorkers understand the phrase "it's a mad break" to mean that it's gold, but people elsewhere in the USA may not understand what the phrase means, because the combination of those words is unique to New York City. Learning the structure of a particular region's idioms takes time and is often achieved by speaking with people from that era. When are idioms used? A speaker or writer often uses idioms to convey a message to someone else in a more creative way. Think of them as a type of spice that prevents your conversation or writing from being too bland. So, instead of saying "you're correct" several times, you might throw in "you hit the nail on the head," or even "bingo" for a little variety. When are idioms used in writing? As mentioned above, idioms can be used to prevent your writing from appearing too dry or formal. But they can also be used to help the writer connect with the reader. If you were writing for a Texan audience and you wanted to describe something as large, you wouldn't just say that. Instead, you would say "it's bigger than Dallas," which means it's very big. This shows the reader that you have a familiarity with the topic you are writing about. Other types of idiomatic usage. There is another type of idiomatic usage used by fluent English speakers, and it's called collocations, or a combination of words that have a specific meaning. In English, it's common to describe a backup of cars on the highway as a heavy traffic. It's not common to describe it as crowded traffic, although the phrases could reasonably be interpreted the same way. The collocation "heavy traffic" simply sounds right to English speakers. Why are idioms challenging for language learners? Idioms are challenging for language learners because their meanings can't be deciphered from the meanings of the individual words. It's like giving someone a jigsaw puzzle containing pieces that look like one thing, only for the finished product to be something else entirely. But, as we mentioned before, that's also true of people from different parts of the same country who speak the same language, because there are no steadfast rules for idioms. The only way for language learners to become familiar with them is to speak with native speakers and have them explained. Idiom examples. Okay, now that we have covered this part of theoretical speech about idioms, we will proceed with examples and how to use them, for example. Now, here are some common idioms in the English language along with their meaning, but I am going to stop here, so this will be the next podcast in the near future. Thanks, and stay fine and funny. Have a funny life. Thank you.